Good morning, podcast community. In the studio, we have a special guest. When I saw her at an event 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, I said, man, that would be a good guest. And then when I learned a tad about her story, I said, oh my gosh, we got to get her on. Twisted her arm. She's here this morning. She made it through the traffic of Kennesaw, which is not easy. So, Nicole, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Absolutely. So, my name is Nicole Wetherington, and I am a mobility consultant for 101 Mobility of North Georgia. And I like to say that I serve pretty much all the communities throughout the state at this point. Anybody that needs solutions for movement or making their home accessible, aging in place, that's what we do.
Wow. When I first kind of glanced, I said, oh, a phone company's here. And
we get that a lot.
I know, because you have mobility in there. I mean, yeah, mobility. So, immediately we go because the branding was really cool too. So let's go back before. Why did you get into what you're doing today?
Well, it's actually a long journey.
Mhm.
Because I did not start off initially in the realm of senior care, senior accessibility,
Mhm.
but like a lot of people, I found myself in the position where I was having to care for my mom's going to hate this, but my aging Filipino mother.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, we all age, so we don't like to hear it, but that's just life.
Well,
Okay.
it's one of those things where my mother was a caregiver for many, many years
Mhm.
out in California, and you know, it just came to be the time when she needed the care,
Mhm.
and that's how I started this journey. And I found out how unprepared we were.
Mhm.
And in the process of learning how to care for my mom and figuring out how to integrate a multi generational household, you know, wearing those multiple hats of
Mhm.
worker, daughter, wife, all of that,
Mhm.
I gradually found my community, my professional community within senior living and senior accessibility now. And so that's the winding path that took me from basically I've had a lot of different careers, but this
Mhm.
is the one that I think just speaks to my heart the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah, I like that because I have heard similar story.
Yeah.
And I was talking to at that event that I
Yeah.
met you, Jerry, who in his journey fell in love with the seniors because you hear the wonderful stories, you get connected to that time of your life that is so precious because we have we be able to look back, we able to see certain things that we didn't see at 25.
Yeah.
So, that perspective really changes our heart and understanding that we're all going to get old. I mean, hey, I don't know anybody that freezes in time and doesn't get old. It's just the
Well,
way it happens.
and it's all just working. I'm a people person. I
Hmm.
love working with people, and you know, kind of a little bit of my immigrant story, as well as in particular, I've always loved being a part of a community.
Hmm.
And so this satisfies a lot of needs. And, I like to think I'm a problem solver too. So a
Hmm.
lot of the things when people talk about aging, they're really just, they're problems for practical problems like,
Hmm.
how do I get up the stairs? How do I, how do I get up from the couch? How do
Hmm.
I stay independent as long as possible and have a dignity and a quality of life? And you start off from that standpoint, but then you just start having conversations with people.
Hmm.
So I was actually really excited and thinking about what we would be talking about today.
Hmm.
And so you had mentioned the three things
Hmm.
that you may want me to talk
Yeah.
about. And so, like, essentially, the three things I would say would be, the three reasons why I love my job as a
Hmm.
mobility consultant. And it really starts off with number one, I love the products I get to represent and tell people about, because it's kind of cool. I mean, whoever would have thought about residential elevators? Like, we're in that age where you can have an elevator in your house, or just all these different technologies. I mean, even the stair lifts are pretty fun, especially if you have a spiral stair lift.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
my gosh, yeah. There is such a thing?
Oh, yeah. Actually, well, we have there are a lot of different stair lifts out there. And they're kind of like cars, honestly. So you have the BMW style high end and customized stair lifts as well. And you have more practical, budget friendly, lifts that, basically it's just trying to match make people with the right solution for their situation. But you get to talk to people about interesting products that are kind of space agey, or at least future proofy.
Right.
And there's a lot of building involved as well. So you have to pay attention to your surroundings, the structure, and I never thought I would be as interested in Georgia code, to be honest with you. But you really you want to make sure everything is compliant and safe, and it's an investment. So I really do love the products that we represent, and there is, I am also a sales professional in being a mobility consultant, but it's such a relief and a privilege to actually like what you talk about.
Yeah. I remember that night, a couple came up and they had their mom who had to go from the house to the mailbox, a long driveway. So you were walking, I mean, you were asking them a bunch of questions, which obviously is always good because you're seeing what scenario they're describing. And I watched how you were giving them options and asking questions and just kind of walking them through what solutions were possible.
Well, okay. So everybody gets a little bit nervous about like these phrases, these terms: aging in place, aging in home, just the entire idea of age, because there's this idea, and there is some truth to it, that there are going to be more physical limitations as if we're lucky enough to reach certain point in our life, right? Because it is a privilege to get to that point.
Yes.
So what I like to do is show people that there are still options, and there are more creative options. And right now, with the advancement of technologies, I really am starting to see, or have been seeing for a while, where the Internet of Everything and technologies and these, even AI, as scary as that might be for some people, how it's connecting with these hardware basic mobility devices, which is our specialization, but even other types of devices, like glasses that can read for you into an earpiece in your ear. So if you have macular degeneration, you can still read. Those are things that are just so interesting to me.
Yes.
And I find mobility, it's part of this whole thing, like we have all sorts of different sensors in our devices now that, I don't know, I'm looking forward to a future that's more like the Jetsons rather than the Flintstones.
And that, I totally agree with you. I love technology, how it makes our life like a better experience.
Yes.
I don't always say like easier, because easier is not always better, but the experience you have when you are able to, like you said with AI, there's a gentleman on that I met, and he has these sensors that form an AI patterns, or for the patterns that you walk in your house is a pattern. It's a habit. And so if all of a sudden one day it doesn't see that you're walking like you normally walk, maybe you fell in the bathroom, maybe something happened that disrupted that pattern that notifies your inner circle. And I was going like, wow, my mom was 94 and she fell. So our concern was, we just put regular videos in. My sister just checks the pattern, but you can't put a video in a bathroom. I mean, that's just this doesn't
Oh,
work. That's invasion of privacy. But you still have to know what the pattern of your loved one is to
absolutely.
be able to, like he said this one thing. We'll get
Yeah,
back to
please, yeah.
the geeky. I love the geeky stuff. I love it. I
Me
can geek
too.
out on technology, like, and I'm not like so savvy with it, but I love how things come and just make our experience better. But he was talking about in a situation where it was a day before they were able to react because the person had gone in the backyard and they didn't know that the videos were in the house, but people leave the house.
Yeah.
And I guess with Alzheimer's, all of a sudden you're going like, wonder if mom's walking around the house and loses her senses about where she is. But if you don't have sensors to understand patterns, all of
Yeah.
a sudden you don't see anything. And for the last 2 hours, you're going, that's weird. Mom usually goes and has lunch at this time. And you're able to adapt and do and help, make a phone call, whatever it is. So I'm curious, what is your favorite technology that you've run into? Do you have one?
Well, I do at this particular time frame. I love elevators.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, I really do love the stilts elevator. It's actually a stilts lift
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a true elevator in that you don't need a separate mechanical room, you don't need a pit or anything like that. But so I've been doing a lot of volunteering with different Parkinson's groups and
Mm-hmm.
different movement groups.
Okay.
Okay. And when you're dealing with a group of people that are looking at a progressive illness
Mm-hmm.
where they will need a mobility device in the future, um, what I loved about these lifts is it was a game changer for a lot of people because they literally can put their scooter, their wheelchair, and get from the basement up to the second floor,
Mm-hmm.
and they can stay in their home. But what I really love about it is it just looks neat. You don't
Right.
have to put it in a closet or like build a shaft around it. It just makes them feel like it really is the epitome of feeling like you have a Jetsons type of
Right.
device in your
Mm-hmm.
home. And for future planning, that is probably one of my most favorite products that we currently send to people or we
Mm-hmm.
connect people with.
Mm-hmm.
But another one too, and maybe this is a little bit more of an emotional one.
Mm-hmm.
I also love the ceiling patient lifts because until I started this job, I'd never seen one. Okay. And especially I'd only seen maybe the lifts like just like a Hoyer lift or something
Yep.
more immediate from the hospital or a
Mm-hmm.
rehabilitation. But we were evaluating for this one house for a lady that actually had a child
Mm-hmm.
that was just getting bigger in his teenage years,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a petite mother, and there was no way she could have lifted her son
Right.
at this particular juncture. So it's not exactly in the senior realm, but just kind of showing how accessibility really touches all sorts of different lives.
Yes.
But what was so cool is she had this amazing ceiling lift that picked up her son from the bed and could transport him all the way through a railing system on the ceiling, all the way to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then she had another ceiling lift that was down in the basement for his physical therapy, and it ran the whole length. So he had support for his exercises to keep walking, and you didn't have to go to a gym, and it was
Mm-hmm.
something, all of his physical therapists, the caregivers, could come and assist in the home. And it was just a game changer for me to see how you could create this environment.
Yeah.
And how it does change lives. So I would say those are my two favorites. I mean, of
Mm-hmm.
course, so the second thing, I mentioned the first thing I love is I love the products.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, or maybe it really is the first thing, is I really do love working with the people.
Right.
Because every person, every family, it's like, it's perfect for it's just perfect if you like newness every day, because you're there's always something different. No two homes are identical, whether or not it's the materials used, or but every family is different, every individual situation. And so you really get to, it's an honor to get to know people, for them to be vulnerable enough to ask for help.
Yes.
And, in a small way, to be able to connect them either to the resources, or to help educate them on the options, and or maybe actually end up helping them change how they function within their home.
Right.
So on an average day, I can log in 150 to 300 miles driving, because I'll drive all the way up, and our team does too. We'll drive all the way up from, oh gosh, where was I a few months ago? Young Harris up at Blairsville. Driving up through the mountains. And then the next day I was down in Valdosta. Actually, that one was interesting, because that was a Baptist church, and it was the structure of the building was, at least 100 years old, if not older. And their congregation wanted to increase their accessibility, because they wanted to make sure that their senior congregants could be able to to access the entire church and all the activities. And so those are some of the things. Those are just a couple examples of the communities that we serve. And when we say we serve all of Georgia, I mean, we really serve all of Georgia, and technically half of Eastern Tennessee. So
now, going from Young Harris to Valdosta, did you take a helicopter?
No, I just drive. But Pete, I'm not sure if I told you, I was in the Army before.
Okay.
8-year
Thank you for serving. So appreciate that.
Thank you. I love working with a bunch of our veteran population. But I joke with the owners all the time of the organization. I don't mind driving, because especially at the bigger vehicles, sometimes I get to drive around, because the first vehicles I learned how to drive on were Humvees. So,
wow.
For your podcast audience, I'm a 4'10" Filipina. So it's always
that had to be that was hilarious. I can see you in one of those. That's like crazy.
It's a little pride to be able to drive around. The bigger the vehicle, the funner. So I don't mind driving, although I think people might think it's an automatic AI driven vehicle sometimes, especially if they're following. But
no, I love. I was at Shepherd for 39 days, and so the hoisting from what. That was like the first week, maybe couple days of that week that I experienced. It's kind of wild, because you're like in the air and you're going up, and you're just like weightless to be able to move. But when you have some people and you have little physical therapists, these are tiny people. They can't carry a big person. So you have to have the tools to do it. And one of my favorite thing was, it was like a guardrail, and you'd get in this harness, and then you'd walk around, and you had the harness to guide you from falling, but it gave you that sensation of learning to walk. And it was like, that was my favorite thing, when they hook you up and you now could walk as you're trying to walk normal. You could, because you had a tool helping you do that. So I can imagine when you find solutions. Now let's go back to being a little girl, because I want to ask you a question there.
Sure.
Okay. Did you have like an engineering mind? Were you always trying to figure out solutions for things, or what was that like that prepared you for what you're doing today?
Well, it's not one of those things I consciously thought of, but I think I just organically gravitated towards different technologies. But I think the big game changer for me was actually when I got married, and my husband is, he's always tinkering with something. And whether it's on the IT side of life, or whether it's literally opening up a computer and fixing something. When he came into my life, I started to develop more and more of a respect for the different technologies. And then when the pandemic happened, he got me into 3D printing.
Yeah. And I saw what the result of that. I was going like, whoa. I mean, tell our viewers, like, what is it? What does it do? And how does it happen? I mean, this
Oh, the
is
3D
fascinating.
printing?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going a little off-roading here.
I
but
know.
But
It's
no,
just,
that's fine.
we'll keep it short, but I was fascinated by,
Well,
you said, see that thing over there? It was a holder. I said, that was off a 3D printer. I went,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
so the 3D printing, if you can think of a glue gun on steroids,
Okay.
with a really small nozzle,
Mhm.
and it's talking to your computer,
Okay.
with your program. Basically, we can design almost anything plastic to, whether it's like little paper clips with a company logo,
Mhm.
or a little plastic part that might actually, be something you can put on a, I won't say a stair lift, but
But a
a
device that
device.
maybe you can't find that,
Yeah,
but you can get the design for it.
exactly.
Okay.
And so, and we do that as as a couple, but
Mhm.
it accidentally ended up helping prepare me for my job, because
Mhm.
so one of the things that we do custom stair lifts, and so
Mhm.
that requires taking a photo shoot so we can digitize things and kind of make a computer automated
Mhm.
design to send to the engineers, the fabricators, right?
Mhm.
And so, working with the 3D printing, and kind of having a little bit of exposure to some CAD systems,
Mhm.
or computer automated design systems,
Yep.
actually helped prepare me for that aspect of the job,
Mhm.
because we do work with manufacturers. Actually, one of our primary manufacturers is an American company up in Wisconsin called Bruno,
Mhm.
and but we have a bunch of different products. But I always like working with them,
Mhm.
because if I do a custom stair, I do the photo shoot, I work with the software, send it up to the manufacturers, and then you get this amazing product at the end.
Mhm.
It's a real life application. But yeah, I guess I've always just liked figuring out how things worked. And I already mentioned the Jetsons. It was kind of my favorite cartoon when I was growing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So I think maybe my fascination is less even about just the technology purely, but trying to imagine what a cool, integrative, accessible future would look like
Right.
for me, for my loved ones,
Mhm.
because, thinking about the future can either cause anxiety or hope,
Yes.
right?
True.
And so I am fortunate enough to, maybe with this exposure, maybe with my job, again,
Mhm.
working for 101 and being a mobility consultant, I get to see happier scenarios
Mhm.
potentially,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
maybe try and come up with solutions so that there's a more pleasant or more dignified outcome for someone.
I think that's so. I mean, I want our viewers to really dial in on that, because as you get older, the experiences that you lose out on can be replicated with technology. So, just like you said, the lady that's a small lady and
Yeah.
her son, now he's able to experience what he was not able to do because his mom wasn't big enough to help him around. And so now you incorporate that, it's enhanced his life
Well, okay.
because he's doing so much more
So
than he
here's
was.
another story
Mhm.
too. The parents are aging, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
there's situations where, and they're more like, there are so many families where the parents might be 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they're caring for their children that are adults that have, physical limitations.
Mhm.
And I helped I helped, but I was honored to be part of the help for this family. They were down in
Mhm.
McDonough, and this gentleman had a daughter that was 25, and she is uh, had severe mobility,
Mm-hmm.
limitations. And he was carrying her up and down those stairs, up and down, like her entire life.
Yeah.
And actually they had relocated, from New York down here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this big house, he said, I've been doing this, but there are just more stairs here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going over the options of the different stair lifts that we had. And he's like, I want the best one. I just want the best one. I want something that's going to last. Because, a lot of people don't realize this, but not all cars are meant to last 20 years.
Right.
Not all stair lifts are meant to last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
With his daughter being in her 20s and the expectancy, this is their forever home, he wanted something that was going to last, that was going to make it easy for him to help her, to carry her.
Yep.
And also he wanted to have a particular stair lift that would empower her to even be able to use it on her own.
Yes.
if he wasn't there. And so that kind of incorporates a lot of the things that I love about this job, which is, number one, helping the family, like the look on his, just the look on his face, the look on her face, to have that freedom again.
Yes.
Or just have that freedom, that independence, even for the first time, right? So getting to know the community, getting to know the Southern Crescent part of Atlanta a little bit better as well. And being able to give a future-proof product to this family, that really sets it all up.
Sure.
But that does kind of also bring me to the third reason why I love my job.
Okay.
And that is, I really love the people I get to work with, because I just do the one part of it.
Okay.
The introduction, the education, giving the options, but the other part that's critically important is the crew that's actually putting it into your home.
Right.
Because that is the product. That is the lasting product. That's the lasting service. And it's not every day that you actually encounter professionals that are so tenured. Like, there are a lot of, not to say that it's a bad thing, but this industry is growing. So you have a lot of newer companies.
Yeah.
And that being said, I get to work with people that have been doing this for a very long time, that are also pretty generous with their knowledge. I mean, again, my background was not exactly in the home renovations or building construction, that side of it. And and what we're doing for the most part is modifying homes, or personal care homes, or assisted livings, even, because those are also our clientele. But we're modifying structures to make it more accessible for people. And so you really do want to have the confidence in having a quality team of people that will do it the right way, and also up to code.
Yes.
That's
totally.
Because that is a nuance right there. There's, or rather, there are a lot of nuances with that. And also, but a lot of the people on my team, this is also not our first career. So I get to work with people that may have building and construction in their background. They may also have physical therapists that have come into this field with, accessibility certifications under their belt as well.
Right.
So it's a learning process there. And then the other part is I have the opportunity to go pretty much to every county in the state and get to meet with professionals in the caregiving or senior resources fields, right, in this industry. And there's such a wealth of knowledge there. And it's interesting, and I mean, honestly, a privilege to be able to get information and to be able to share that.
Sure.
Because they might be doing something down in Macon that's truly innovative and could be something worthwhile for somebody in Cherokee County to hear. And maybe I might be out in Paulding, but then, I'll be heading out to Augusta, and there could be a connection there. And so I do feel like I have the privilege of being a connector person.
Yes.
And I get to work with a lot of helpers. So, I don't know if you're a Mr. Rogers fan.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know anybody's not a Mr.
Well,
Rogers fan, but no, I know. I watched it. I really like that. Yeah.
well, in the
Mhm.
one of the documentaries,
Mhm.
I know Mr. Rogers had been asked after 9/11, after the tragedy,
Mhm.
and people had asked him, Mr. Rogers, like, what do we do now? And he said, he said, I don't know very much. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know very much of what I can tell you, but I do know to say, look for the helpers.
Yeah.
Look for the
Yeah.
helpers.
Totally.
And I know in my profession, I get to meet and work with a lot of helpers because
Mhm.
that's all they're doing. They're trying to help people figure out this next chapter of their life.
Yes.
Or, if it's not the aging side, just trying to help people move freely in their life. Because I
Mhm.
mean that it's basic, like what's the first thing that we really do when we're babies? We crawl, we walk,
Mhm.
and so being a part of helping people move.
Right.
That is
Yeah. I mean, that's movement is medicine, as we say around
yeah.
here. And, I like, I ran into Angie
Yeah.
Tuesday. And so I was kidding when I said, come on. I told her, you were coming on. She goes, yeah, I talked to her. I said, come on, why don't you join? She goes, oh, Nicole, she doesn't need any help. I said, oh, really? I said, okay. So I can see why she said that.
But Angie Mori,
Yeah.
my coworker, she's been so generous with her knowledge. I mean, she's actually
Mhm.
the one. Her background is in physical therapy, so
Really?
I have learned
Okay.
I have learned so much from her,
Mhm.
especially in evaluating for patient lifts and
Mhm.
like even going into a home. She'll spot different things.
Right.
That could be you know areas of awareness,
Mhm.
so but our whole team, I mean, we have Mark down the south whose background is in the structure, the physical structure,
Mhm.
or I'll talk to some of our guys, Robert out here in Marietta, he's in the installation crew,
Mhm.
and I've learned a lot from him with like the auto lifts. I'm not sure, are you familiar with auto lift products?
I mean,
For
no.
the
Well, sure.
scooters, like so
Okay.
most people get scooters, right?
Okay. Mhm.
But then they'll be able to scoot around the block. But how
Mhm.
do you take that scooter? Say you want to go to the Blue Ridge or that some
Yeah.
part of like a nice trail elsewhere.
Yeah.
You have to put in the car, right? And so
Right.
a lot of people don't think about getting a scooter that matches their car. Like you can get a
Yeah.
special lift
Yeah.
that
Oh,
we
okay.
match with the vehicle. So a lot of times I think people should kind of call, ideally us, but just call first to
Mhm.
find out what auto lifts would match various scooters they're
Yeah.
interested in. Because
Totally.
those lifts, they have weight capacities. And some of those scooters can be like 400 pounds or
Right.
even more if they have like a captain's chair or something.
Uh-huh.
You can like pretty much go off-roading, which is why it's great if you like
Yeah.
you want to take it to a trail, not just ride on down to Publix,
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but you need to have like you might need to not just modify your home for that, but you might actually need to modify your vehicle
Right.
rather. And some people think, oh, I just have to get a big van, but no, it just depends on what your vehicle is. I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen an auto lift on like a Kia or a Hyundai, like the smaller ones,
Right.
but like I've seen them on like a Mazda. So
Yeah.
you just kind
Well,
of
it makes sense. I like what you brought up about that because we say we don't know what we don't know, and there's consequences by not knowing that. So all of a sudden you buy this scooter and you don't think about the mobility part of taking that to another place, and you're just thinking about one thing, getting around your house.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole purpose of it. It's like you said, you want to go to the Blue Ridge. Okay, now I can't bring it with me
So
because I didn't think about that transportation.
I'm
part of it.
working with a gentleman right now to hopefully connect him with the right product.
Mhm.
And he took his kids, or he took his children and his grandchildren to Disneyland or to
Mhm.
Disney World last year. And he has the motorized scooter. It's okay, but he had difficulties with traveling with it because it was just too
Mhm.
big. So he's
Right.
in the market for a motorized travel scooter
Mhm.
now. And they do have them, and something that would be compliant for the flight. And
Mhm.
we're coming up with some options, but that's just a little example of, don't limit yourself. Or most people
Yes.
don't realize that um, they're using their product maybe 60% of what
Mhm.
it could be, and it's just another little snapshot of
Yes.
what to do. Here's another one too.
Mhm.
People are always, I do a lot of stair lifts.
Okay.
That's the product I'm the most comfortable with, although my favorite's that elevator.
Mhm.
It's still
Yeah.
lift, right? But I do a lot of the stair lifts. But one of the things where, you put the stair lift in, it's fine, but maybe mom actually is just having, or dad is having difficulty just standing up from the couch,
Right.
to get to a rollator so they can go upstairs to their bedroom.
Mhm.
So at that particular point, if they're just needing a little bit of help just to get to a standing position,
Mhm.
a power lifting chair might actually be
Mhm.
the secondary option
Yeah.
that would make sense. But like the combination of those two would be perfect. And as far as the powerlifting chairs go, and that's another product that I really love. I do have a personal story with that one.
Okay. Share it with us.
Because I have my sister, love her to death.
Mhm.
She lives independently,
Mhm.
and she had a double mastectomy,
Mhm.
and it is not easy to push off
Right.
when you've had that procedure.
Mhm.
And so and you can't sleep in your bed
Mhm.
for a little while because of the positioning, so you have to be at an incline, right?
Right.
And so we were a little bit nervous. How do we help her with her independence as she's recovering
Mhm.
from this intense procedure? And the powerlifting chair was the game changer for our family,
Really.
because like the biggest thing is she was able to stand up without being
Mhm.
able to push off. And the chair that we purchased was a chair that she could sleep in.
Mhm.
Now, the difference in price for a lot of these different powerlifting chairs
Mhm.
is going to be the back support if you put it on a complete horizontal level position,
Mhm.
because that lumbar support, we all know what it's like to sleep in a recliner, and
Right.
that can be painful. But the better models are going to have the best support, and they might even have massage functions,
Mhm.
heating functions, the ability to lift the feet up a little bit higher so you have the appropriate blood flow to prevent
Right.
lymphedema
Mhm.
in the lower extremities. So that, she didn't have the stairs, but she did have a mobility issue. And that mobility issue, granted, it was for a short time, but
Mhm.
it, those 6 months, game changer for our
Right.
family. And so
Yes.
those are the things that, I like. Those are just another, more product anecdotes about
Yes.
why I love what I do.
Yeah. I mean, you're finding those solutions, and those solutions make the quality of life of that person so much better.
Yeah.
And so you're the bridge to a quality of life that's pretty cool, because you have to be in a person's shoes to know the challenges they face. But when you can provide that solution, just as you're describing the sleeping in a chair,
Yeah.
I was kind of stubborn about not taking the valet trash service. So I said, I don't need that. I'm a guy.
Yeah.
So I'm Santa Claus walking down the hall. Well, I tripped. And I didn't face plant, but I rip planted on
Oh.
concrete, knocked the wind out of me. 3 ladies came out of the apartment. They went, "Whoa, what?" It was a big sound, but it knocked my breath out, and of course my ribs. So I called my concierge guy. We're friends, and I said, "You got any advice?" He goes, "Well, good news and bad news. The good news is you want to keep breathing. The bad news is when you do breathe, you're going to be in pain because
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do." He says, "You're going to have some uncomfortable nights." Well, I slept in that reclining chair for 3 weeks because I couldn't. I tried the flat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even, I couldn't function because I slept like 1 hour the first night because it was like the worst. But no, all of a sudden you shift now. It's just that quality of life that makes such a difference. That's incredible. I was able, I mean, no coughing, no sneezing, no nothing, because every time you do with a rib injury, man,
Oh yeah.
it is the worst. I'd rather break a leg than ribs.
Well, it makes you feel nervous because you can't take that full breath,
Yes.
right? Because it's you hear a lot about that. I mean, half the reason, unfortunately, why we get called out is somebody has already experienced a fall,
Right.
right? And so most of our products, if not all of our products, are really geared towards fall prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's prevention is the best medicine. Just
yes,
create. And so one of the things too is just speaking about that recliner. I don't know if yours is a custom one or
it's right there. It is. It's from Lazy Boy, so it isn't custom.
Well, but the thing about it, what I like is, again, if you start delving a little bit deeper into where the technology is meeting these needs, right? Those power lifting chairs that they really get you to that standing position.
I know what you're saying.
But the customization involved, that's where the pricing differences start to occur. But like, if you think about it, I'm 4'10", you're what, 6 foot something?
6'9.5". If it's an athletic, I go 6'10". No, I go 5'10". If it's like medical, I go 5'9.5".
Well,
I try to round up.
Okay, so the types of chairs that make me comfortable are going to be very different.
Sure.
And the size alone, the length alone of the chair, right? Like when I sit down, I'm just really excited that my feet touch the ground in this chair that you gave me, okay? Because that's not an everyday occurrence, all right? Most of the time they're just
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. That is hilarious.
So
I see. I never lived in under 5 foot body that sees it differently than others. And you bring up these things that, like, unless you're under 5 feet, you don't know about what your feet can do.
So
I agree with you.
If you're looking for a chair, it's kind of intuitive, but you don't think about it until somebody points it out.
Yes.
Like the type of recliner that would fit me, especially if it's a lifting recliner where you want to have that assurity that it's going to be compatible, for you to get up. It's going to be different than somebody of a different size, and maybe you want something a little bit wider, something a little bit smaller. But that chair, that customization, it really, it just makes a difference.
I think it goes back what you were saying a couple of times. Enhances that experience. And when we get a little older, we're more, I think, tuned into that, because just age does that we recognize good experiences versus not so good. And when we get a little older, we have a little extra, and we can put it towards making sure that experience is the best, because we only have one life. I don't know anybody that has more than one, but so I could geek out on this all day long, because I am, even though I'm not a technology savvy, I geek out, because this little thing here was my friend that was showing me the bone vibration, because my ears don't fit regular ones. I got the Apple ones. I sold it after that because they would fall out and my ears just weren't good for that. So I would put other ones in there. I go, man, I don't like that. And then he was explaining to me, you don't put it in your ear. I went, what? I mean, and then it's incredible because I can wear it all the time. I don't have to like always have a cord and all, but that experience that you're describing makes it so much better.
I actually need to think about the hearing devices, again, off-roading just a little bit for my mom, but she says, I don't have a hearing problem. I have a listening problem because I can hear you. I just don't want to listen. That's what.
I don't think there's any technology for it.
No,
you either got to make yourself more interesting that she'll listen to you, or You're just not going to address that.
Oh,
That's funny. I
well,
like that.
you were talking about your Filipino following, and so
Yeah.
I had to bring up my
Yes.
my very Filipino mom.
Yes. And I think and this is kind of off road, but is your culture more serving than most? I see it, but what's your thought? What can you share with our viewers?
Well,
Generally, I mean, I know that everybody's not the same.
I would say I'm not sure if serving is exactly the right word, but
Mhm.
our elders are beloved to us in our culture.
Okay.
Because it's like there's a real honor, I
Okay.
think.
Really? Is
Well,
that I agree with you because we talked about I have now two in the Philippines and I've had one for a year. But we'll talk about her family. Like she's very dialed into her family
yeah.
more than I really ever believed because she would say, I'm going to do this. I'm going. So that makes sense.
My mother, she isn't, well, maybe I derive a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
maybe inspiration is not always the right word.
Mm-hmm.
On our crankier mom daughter days, because we're human, I'll tell my mom that she's the stone that sharpened my knife.
That's good.
And all the trials
Yeah.
and tribulations we've
Yeah.
gone. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
Yeah.
Because, you know, caring for a parent,
Yes.
caring for an elder, it opens your heart up in a way I don't think that is dissimilar to having children.
Right.
Because there's a certain love that you love them because you're willing to sacrifice. The act of sacrifice sometimes is like, even if it's hard, but you know that if you're willing to do that, that's like almost like the test in your heart. I really love. I don't like this, but I love you. And so I know that watching my mother and how she poured everything into caring for her mother and her father, who both had cancer and in the Philippines, and she paid for every bit of that, to take, because it's not the same
health plan is here.
Yes, health plan, health safety net that we have here. So it really is, you're going to get the quality of care that you pay for.
Right.
So I saw how she supported them and how important it was for her and even her siblings, And so that wasn't always easy, when you're growing up. I was born in the Philippines. I spent half my childhood there, but I grew up in the United States as well. So it wasn't always easy when maybe your Christmas is delayed, but grandma and grandpa need medication.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And
I mean, I understand what you're saying. And those are the choices you had to make.
And that was always at the center, the family, and caring for her elders.
Yes.
Was something that I just always grew up with. I always saw that. And I saw that with my other Filipino friends and family, So I won't say necessarily that we're better at caregiving, but the center of a Filipino family aren't just the children,
right?
But also our elders, and it's, if anything,
beautiful. That is really, and I know because I've never lived there, I've never visited there, but I'm always fascinated by culture and geographic and just generally, and I've never heard it explained like that, which now validates some of the things I've heard over the last year to love that, because I think here we're moving around so much, we lose a little bit of that, where, the respect for the elders, the just the general take care of your elders. That is so, man, that's so powerful.
Well, I think sometimes there's a fear that all of us have to confront about entering into what I think of as the third chapter of our life. There's this I just, the first act of like your adolescence and childhood and all the growing, and then the middle years of
Mhm.
maintaining and conserving and trying to take care of everything on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then the third chapter of our life where it's this process of letting go.
Yeah.
And how we let go at that point of life, really, it can be hard, it can be easier for some, but generally speaking, it's kind of almost adolescence,
Mhm.
this awkward, I'm too old for some things, but I'm too young for other things.
Mhm.
And so I often, when I talk with clients, especially if they're in, their, mid 60s, early 70s,
Mhm.
it's like, oh gosh, you're in your second adolescence. Nobody told you about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's just the truth of it. Yeah, and that's good to share that.
but I feel that I don't know, it's I like being able to help people explore the kinder side of that
Mhm.
third chapter.
Yes.
And I just have to say too, as a Filipino American, I love being in the South
Mhm.
because I mean I've lived all over the country and in Europe as well, partially through the military. I mean,
Mhm.
so just Texas, California, Maryland, I mean, just name it.
Yeah.
I've been around. Um, but I love the southern region in particular, and Georgia, of course. This is pretty much my forever home
Mhm.
because I have found that the southern culture seems to be the most familiar to the way I was kind of raised,
Mhm.
as far as multi-generational households. They're kind of the thing out here. All these basement apartments or these people buying farmland and converting it into mom's house and
Yep.
our house and the kids' house, and and just kind of bringing families together, not in a dissimilar way to the way my family
Mhm.
is, and just kind of tying it all in. What I do, we get consulted all the time to help people make appropriate and aesthetically pleasing multi-generational
Mhm.
homes and solutions for that. So,
It's beautiful here. We have a couple here. Robert, I won't mention because he's going to be on our podcast of tiny homes.
oh, okay.
They're looking. They moved from a tiny home down to here to be near grandkids and their family.
Oh,
Well, his daughter lives downtown, and they want to put a tiny home in their backyard
yeah,
to be closer to family. So what you're saying is but here it's that zoning, laws that are in, because we had a guy that really wants to promote it in
yeah,
Kennesaw, but you can't fight City Hall because the laws don't prohibit a house to be put, because there's not a tax base generally. It
yeah.
gets down to this tax structure of a county, but you have to think a little bit outside the box now,
How to make
because
it work.
yeah, so you figure out to do something to allow that to happen, but you're changing a whole set of laws that have been put in place. That land, in
Yeah,
Kennesaw is premium. I mean, look
yeah.
at all these apartments going up. Right behind us, we've got a huge development.
I'm in the
And
Bermuda Triangle of Atlanta where the 85 and the 285 meet.
oh,
So
really? Okay.
I
Yeah.
understand the space.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like we have to be creative with how we utilize the land, because if we don't, look at the traffic coming over here. You
Well,
probably didn't have an easy ride where the roads are just
abs-
blank and you can fly over
well, and
here.
that's where the design and the technology it all
Hmm.
meets again to try and help us create
Yeah.
a more accessible future,
Yes.
a more inviting future, a less scary
Hmm.
aging storyline. Because I think that's ultimately what I hope my generation is able to do is just create a less scary aging storyline that
Hmm.
maybe if you have diabetic neuropathy,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that you won't be able to access a 2-story house because you're
Right.
scared to walk up and down the
Yep.
door. If I mean that's just a small example, but
Mhm.
but the technology, I think, is starting. It's more and more trying to meet people's needs.
Yep.
Now there are some bad actors there,
Sure.
actors anywhere, but
Yep.
I think in the overall, my take of it is, there is going to be a good fusion
Mhm.
between our human needs
Yes.
and what we can imagine through
Yes.
technology and how to meet those needs.
Yes. And that's just so exciting. Now I could geek out all day, but I know you got some work to do. And I did. Angie, she did really well. That's for you, Angie. I mean, she didn't need any help, because I was kidding with her. Come on there. We'll have a good time. She goes, no, Nicole doesn't need any help.
Well, thank you, Pete, for having
Yes.
me.
And I want to tell our viewers how can they get a hold of you. And I hope I got this right because usually I do it before. But is that the right number?
Actually, it's 791-2000, not 1200.
Okay. All right. Look, we're going to make that correction right here because we're not going to send people to some other number. Okay.
It's 770.
Okay.
791-2000.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you for that.
Well, you know what?
And it's 101 Mobility, and we serve the entire state of Georgia. We do have our headquarters in Brazelton and a showroom in Marietta as well.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Dang, this has been good. Thank you so much. And I have to give a shout out because I told Terexa that you were coming up. Ronaldo and Terexa, you have Nicole right here. You're going to see her crushing it in our area that she works in. Thank you so much. Now, as we wind down, we always ask this question. It's not a difficult one, but we want you to tell our viewers, what is the one thing you would want them to take home from our time on the podcast?
The one thing, okay, I would say there is help. Sometimes as we're confronting how our bodies are changing, how our circumstances are changing, communities are changing, it can feel very disempowering. But there is help, there are resources, and there are people that do care and want to help. And I hope to be one of those people, and I work with a bunch of amazing people that are that have hearts of helpers. And that's the one takeaway I have. And don't give up. Just give us a call or give someone a call, and allow yourself to be surprised by the assistance and the help that's out there.
That is awesome. Okay, now I'm going to give a little. When I met you at the Presbyterian Church,
yes.
So I'm sitting in that crowd, and I told Christian this the other day. I said, I got an idea from that night. I was in, that was my first time I had been there. So here's the idea, and we actually have it coming up. So we're going to do a little promotional thing. Okay. The 22nd of May.
Okay.
We're going to bring our adult children with our aging parents for a night of comedy.
Oh,
we're going to get them laughing. We're going to have hangout. We have food there. We have just a way to enjoy your parents and be able to talk to people like Nicole, because you got to know what your options are. You have to know what's available to enhance that later in life. So this is going to be at Grace Church here in the town center. But we have Ken Kington, who's a national comedian. He's a clean, funny. If you go to Dry Bar, search his name, 45 minutes. You will absolutely. I was listening for 15 minutes this morning because I needed some comedy. I'm telling you, he is so funny that it just laughter brings so much to the heart and soul. So please put that on your calendar, our viewers, please, and share this. I want you to share this video because people don't know what they don't know. And if you know somebody that's looking and they're getting at that stage where Nicole would be a good person to talk with, let them know that this is available so she can come in and help you understand your options. So thank you, Nicole. Appreciate you being
Thank you,
with
Pete.
us.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
again, to Angie, she crushed it. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.